Hi, I'm Rick Dior, and this is part two of Conga Basics. Today we're going to talk about ostinatos. So this is the way that I teach my students how to get the best sounds out of the drums, also how to develop their hands so they're a little bit tougher. So an ostinato is any repetitive pattern. So in other words, if I did this, that's considered a one bar ostinato. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Now we can change those ostinatos and make them more interesting by playing them around the drums. So in other words, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So we'll do a little of that today. And today I'm going to show you three different ostinatos that I use commonly to develop coordination on the congas. The first one will be that one we've already played. The next one will be a samba rhythm, which is this. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 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 1. So that imitates the sordo pattern in Brazilian music. And the last one I'll be talking about is a 6/8 feel, which goes like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So let's start with the easiest one. That's the one that I played in the beginning, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So when you're doing these ostinatos, what you want to do is just start with one sound of the drum that's playing the ostinato. In this case, and in this case for this whole video, I'll be playing all the ostinatos with my right hand. You can definitely play ostinatos with your left hand. That's a little more difficult, and that will be for a separate video. So this particular ostinato is this 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Now, what I do to develop these is I use rhythms from different books. So today we'll be using rhythms from my book. This is I know a lot of you have it, the drum set book and hand percussion book. Now, what I'll do at the end of the video, I'll post the pages, I'll scan them, I'll put them in the end so you can see what I'm playing with. And maybe if I could figure out a way to have them up when I'm playing, as well as you looking at me, I'll try to do that too. So these are syncopated rhythms using 16th notes. I would suggest, if you're a complete beginner and you don't read really well, starting with quarter notes and eighths. But I'll expect that you guys can read some, and we'll just start with 16th so the video doesn't end up being 2 hours. So the first thing you want to do is set that ostinato on really any drum. I'm using 5 drums here. I normally don't do that, but I just like to have the different pitches, and I'm going to show you how to create different melodic ideas with your right hand while you're playing that ostinato, and your left hand as well. So for this case, we're going to play this rhythm on one drum with an open palm. And the right hand is going to play the rhythm. So the right hand plays that rhythm that's written, okay? So that's pretty basic, right? So what you can do to make it a little more interesting is to change the drums you're playing it on. In other words, go back and forth. And so forth, and doing that. Okay, and I'll play the whole thing through in a minute. So you can also use palm strokes, dead strokes, open strokes, really anything you want. So that would sound like this. So that's an open, a palm, and then an open. So. So on, okay? So what that sounds like when it's up to tempo, I'll show you. I'm going to use a click track so you have a reference of that groove. And we'll start pretty slow. We'll put it maybe on 110 or so. So that's how that first line or two would go. And then when you change the pitches, use two different drums, it sounds like this. So on. Okay, so hopefully you get the idea of that rhythm. So there's different combinations that you can do of rhythms. You can do one-note rhythms, of which that was an example. You can do two-note rhythms, which will be, again, I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but this second page in the book, it's page 8. And I'll post that at the end of the video. So now this becomes much, much more difficult. So what you're doing is you're playing that rhythm. Once again, we'll do the same one we were doing. And then the left hand does the two-note rhythms. And so forth, okay? So you may want to start with these slower. Now you'll see that I'm doing this heel-toe motion that I talked about in the first conga video. I consider this as, I know it sounds strange, but as one stroke, because my hand is always doing that in that order. I'm not doing or. It's always heel toe, heel toe, heel toe. So you probably want to think about that as one kind of stroke and get used to it. And it's normally heel toe, although it can be toe heel on occasion for different grooves. So if I do that, so that's just doing that. And now you want to lift up your hand quite a bit to get some sound. Now the other way to do that is in an open position, which means this. So you can do it actually a heel toe towards the edge of the drum, which gets pretty interesting. So it's almost like a wah-wah kind of effect. You can also do some slaps with your left hand, okay? To make it more interesting, to add more, more variation of sound to that, especially when you're soloing. So what we'll do now is I'll play a few lines of that. I'm not going to play too much of it because we got a lot to get to here. So let's put this a little slower, maybe 104 or so. So that's the first line, and you see what I'm doing there. Now, when you're practicing this, you got to have a lot of patience. At first, you're going to feel like you can't do anything, and that's fine. What you want to do is start really slow, and then add each beat. So in other words, that first line, which is 1 and 2 E and 3 E and 4 and, as you go, you'll add a beat to your rhythm, and then you'll rest. So you do like this, 3, 4. That's just the first beat. Okay, next beat, then we'll add another beat. That's the second beat, and we'll do it again. And now we're at the third beat. That was with the fourth beat. Measure, okay, and on, measure by measure, till you can do the whole line like I did for you earlier. And then eventually the whole page, you're going to want to do that. That takes a long time to do it, but the goal is to get this on automatic pilot so you can play anything over it, All right? And solo over it as well. Now, as also the way you want to do these is at many different tempos. So you'll find doing it slower sometimes is more difficult than doing it faster. then the last step is to try to play it around the drums if you have more drums. That's really tough. So. Okay, and you see how I'm moving my left hand, and becomes very tricky. So try it slow. One little mental concept you might want to try, and this doesn't work for everybody, but I know it's worked for some of my students. What I do is almost try to get into like a trance-like state where my mind's eye, in other words, what my brain is focusing maybe 90% on, is that right hand. Like that. And it's hypnotic, you know, but that's what you're listening for. And then the left hand, depends on how good a reader you are, will just basically play those rhythms. Now, of course, you can do it the other way where you put this on automatic pilot and it just goes. But I find for me, it's easier to concentrate on that melodic rhythm and let the left hand just flow with those rhythms. That might, you know, be different for you when you try it. So that's ostinato 1. Now here's ostinato 2. Okay, we're going to do the next difficult one is the triplets, so the 6/8. This is used in rhythms like nandigo, bembe, any 6/8 rhythm. So you're doing this rhythm: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, and as we did before, we want to vary that. So that's a good one to start with. So now in the book, if you have it, and again, I keep saying I'll post these, it would be page 10. I have some triplet rhythms. Really, any book works. Any book you want to get that has triplets for this. So, and you play those with your left hand. And so on. So when it's fast, so that's the first 6 lines or so of that. That one's really fun. And again, you can do it open, close, open, like that. Makes it even more interesting. So. To do some flams in there. That's the character of that music. There's lots of flams. It doesn't need to be mechanical. In fact, please don't play it mechanical. You don't want to play it like stiff. It needs to be very loose. Again, if you have some other drums or anything, bongos work great for that. It's really fun. So you're accompanying yourself. Great for solos. Great if you're playing just with one other instrumentalist, like a guitar player or bass player, anything. You got that rhythm going, so it sounds like 2 players are playing. Now, the next one, and the hardest one by far, is for this lesson anyway, is the Samba, the Brazilian Samba. So we all know the surdo goes. Well, maybe we all know it, but now you know it. So that's the line. So you want to try to simulate that on a conga, which is not easy because congas don't ring. So what I would suggest is doing it on your lowest drum that has a little bit of ring and depth to it. This drum actually has a little more ring because as in the Conga 1 video, I explained that it has a thinner head, so it's going to ring a little longer. But in this case, I like to play between these drums, so these two drums. So we'll do it on the low drum. So that's going to be our ostinato, okay? Okay, so you see it's palm, toe open, or palm, palm open. Either way, it's just a rocking motion. Okay, and you could do all the tamborim, you know, the little drum parts with your toe if you'd like. Okay, and so then we start practicing the rhythms with this, which becomes very difficult. So I would definitely suggest doing one bar at a time, adding each beat as you go. So now this is more difficult because there's more to this ostinato. It's actually a two-cell. This is what they call it in Cuba, two-cell rhythm. So before we were just doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, which is one beat. This is pretty much the whole bar is the ostinato. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's not just two beats now. It's the whole bar. So that's why it's more difficult coordination-wise. So let's try a little of this. So we'll start with the single strokes on page 7. And for reference, we'll put a metronome on again so you can kind of see what's going on. We'll slow this one down. We'll do it around 96. See if this tempo works. So on. Okay, that was up until around line 3 or so. So I think you get the idea. Let's try a much more difficult one with the two-note groupings, page 8. Okay, so that's the first 3 lines. Now you might feel like your brain's going to explode, but you just got to do it over and over again. And again, don't get frustrated. You'll have some good days and bad days with these things. So to close, I'll do a quick little solo using those kinds of ideas. And the next video, hopefully, will be about Conga rhythms, the traditional rhythms that we all use. But I would suggest doing this kind of stuff you know, every day. This ostinato stuff for me and my students has helped a great deal with playing the instrument.